Good morning, baseball fans. Welcome back. Another Monday morning, another 10 a.m. It's time for Around the State. It's our 10th episode of season 4. Love to jump on here and do a little review from last week and just cover some things that are important for our listeners. And I obviously think the big thing is the release of our classification polls, and then we'll wrap it up with our Power 25. Man, it's flying by. We said that last week, but you wait all year and then it gets here and it seems like the days just roll by. But we are, again, this may be our favorite hour of the week to get on here and just chat and talk some baseball. As always, before I turn it over to Austin and ask him how he's doing, as always, don't forget.
Hold on. Special guest.
Oh man, from Jackson, Alabama, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Alabama is in the house. We are pumped to have Miss Julie Rogers on with us this week. I think she's a longtime listener. Maybe this is her first time to follow it live. I may be wrong, but we just got her set up. Glad to have her on. So welcome, Juju.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, another week. It's 10 a.m. We love this hour of the week to talk some baseball, release those rankings. And as I was moving into that part, I was about to say, if there's any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out and put that in the comments section out there. If you have any questions about rankings, any of that, we'd love to touch base on it. But Austin, good morning, man. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. It's this past week and this week, it's more of a, the teams are kind of on their spring break and you see a game that's like, for instance, I know Gardendale and Glenwood was on a website to play. And I go and look, and of course it's at the beach, and they're on spring break, and because Glenwood's just 30 minutes away from me, so I got excited for no reason, and just kind of all these teams are on spring break. They're kind of all over the state, and just kind of picking and choosing those, finding some games to go to, and trying to see some different teams. I know we're both going to get out kind of in our own area today, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday I'll be headed up north. And I'm thinking I'm going to stop in Tuscaloosa and check out a game there. And so trying to get to different parts of the state and while not going crazy, putting tons of miles on our cars, but trying to get to see some different teams. And yeah, like you said, it's area play we're in the middle of area play. Some started this past week, some started the week before, but yeah, it's getting down to the important time of the season.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the show here. We're not going to completely just rehash and re-say everything that we say every week, but we are going to just remind you, if you want some of this merchandise that we often wear and wear at our events, there is the link there. I know that there's we're starting to see more and more as we go to games. And I forget where I was. I was at the Trash Pandas Stadium for a college baseball game and saw about 3 or 4 different pieces from our website or our online shop there. There's the link, as Austin just put that up. It is shop.prepbaseball.com. I think it's over $50. It's free shipping. And it's a quick turnaround. They get it to you very quick. That's a testament to those people running the shop, their online shop. That's not Austin and I. That's our people that run that. So again, if you want some merchandise, there's the link. Please feel free to go on there and order that. And then again, we're not going to go over every event that we have upcoming this summer. We've done that the last 2 weeks. But again, there is our schedule for the summer. Registrations are rolling in. Just to touch on a couple of the things, every event Every event is an identifier for the future games, which includes future games, junior future games, and senior future games. If you'll notice there at each location, we have a summer ID. Oh, and we have
Another
a
big
Rising
guess, man.
Stars ID.
The stars
Another,
are out today.
that's right. The Stars, we have VIPs in the house this morning. My aunt from the baseball hotbed of Coleman, of Coleman, Alabama. She's on listening, and I will, if I seem nervous for the rest of this podcast, it's because my Aunt Mona is on, because she is a highly respected teacher of the English language. So I want to make sure that I'm using correct sentences. I'm not no run-ons or anything like that. Thank goodness the capitalization. You can't see how things are capitalized as I'm speaking. But yeah, as Austin said, VIP in the house this morning, 2 of them. And there's Austin Miller, Cottonwood rolling into area play. But again, back to our event schedule. The Rising Stars ID are for the 20,
30s and 31.
Yeah, 30s and 31s. And then the summer IDs are for the rising seniors and freshmen, which is the graduating classes of 2026 through 2029. You see there, we've talked about it, our elite, our only invite only event of the year is the Yellowhammer State Games. Please get those invites sent in, requested, and we have another wave of those coming out pretty soon. So get those in. As I mentioned, all of them are identifiers for the future games that we take over Team Alabama. And Austin made a great point last week. And I started it, but Austin, touched base on it. In order to be considered for Team Alabama for any of our 3 future games teams that will be taken over, you must attend one of these events this summer for us to identify you, evaluate you, and see how you stack up. So again, we put these throughout the state at the larger metropolitan areas. So hopefully one of these fits into your schedule. And, if you have any questions, obviously you can reach out to us via email. So that's our summer schedule. Man, Austin, last week, I don't think we had any commitments, or maybe one, but this week, a pretty busy week across the state for commitments.
Yes, we have 6, 5 25s in the 2026, starting off in the 2025s. Carson McCutcheon, a left-handed pitcher, first baseman from Holtville. He committed to Reed State Community College. Bryce Campbell is another left-handed pitcher from Spain Park. He committed to Gadsden State Community College. Catcher, right-handed pitcher Blake Westry, who was one of the hotter names on the board in the 2025 class. He's from Fairhope. He committed to West Alabama. Utility Ty Bedell from Leeds. He committed to Powerhouse Chipola down in Florida. Bryant Jones, right-handed pitcher, third baseman from Austin. He just committed to Calhoun Community College yesterday. And then the lone 2026 to commit was outfielder Dorsett Jackson from Prattville High School. He committed to West Alabama as well. So congrats to all 6 of those families. Carson McCutcheon to Reed State, Bryce Campbell to Gadsden State, Blake Westry to West Alabama, Ty Bedell to Chipola, and Bryant Jones to Calhoun, and Dorsett Jackson to West Alabama. So congrats to all 6 of those guys and their families on their announcement to further their baseball playing career. So with all that being said, we'll go ahead and get into kind of the meat and bones of the episode and get into our classification polls for 1A through 7A. I think we've got three new number 1s this week, a little bit of shakeup at the top in some classifications. We'll go ahead and get started in Class 1A. I'll get us going in 1A. Let's remove this. In 1A, we have one new team who enters the top 10 this week. But sliding down a few spots this week is Lynn. Lynn comes in at number 10 with a 14-5 record. They went 1-3 this past week. I think they played some higher classification teams like Oakman. I know they played Addison, got beat by Addison, Hubbardville. So Lynn still with an impressive 14-5 record. They slide down from number 7 to number 10. Staying put this week at number 9 is Sweetwater, the Class 1A defending runner-ups from last year. Went 1-2 this past week and sit at 11-8. Coosa Christian is the one team to break it back into the top 10. They They started off in the preseason poll at number 4 and started off the season 1-6. They've quickly won 8 straight games to push their record to 9-6, and one of those games was over Scottsboro, Scottsboro is 5A, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. 5A, yeah. So Coosa Christian with an impressive win and an impressive streak of wins, winning 8 in a row. Coosa Christian makes their way back in this week. They're 9-6, and they come in at number 8. Sliding down one spot this week is Fayetteville. Fayetteville with 2-2. I think their 2 losses were West Limestone. No, I forget. I think they play some higher class teams, but Fayetteville slides down one spot this week, and they sit at 12-6. Billingsley makes a 2-spot jump up from number 8 to number 6. They went a perfect 3-0 this week and sit at 12-3. Leroy continues to roll on with an impressive record. They went 3-1 this past week and sit at 15-2. Florala slides down one spot from number 3 to number 4 this week. They sit at 10-4. They went 2-1 with the one loss being to Opp. So and Opp's a really quality 4A club. So no disrespect there for Florala. But just speaking more for the reason that those teams swap, Millery jumps up to number 3, going 4-0 this past week, continuing to play some really strong baseball. They push their record to 18-3. Appalachian stays put at number 2, going 2-0 this past week, pushing the record to 14-2, and then staying at the top spot. Hackleburg goes 2-2, pushing the record to 13-4, and those 2 losses were to West Limestone. So another team, 1A team playing some higher class teams. So we felt we're going to continue to keep Hackleburg in the top spot and not punish them for playing some of those larger schools. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 1A, we've got a few here. One second, let me fix this. Starting it off, we've got Addison, who comes in with a 12-8 record. They had some, I know they had some consideration to be that 10th team to make their way back in. Athens Bible is 11-4. Brantley is the one team to drop out of this week's rankings. They went 1-1 this past week and pushed their record to 5-2. And more of a reason for Coosa Christian is the reason why Brantley dropped out. Coosa Christian's been playing really good baseball, and we felt like we had to get them in. So Brantley drops out. They're 5-2. Otter is 11-4. Jacksonville Christian is 6-2. University Charter is 6-7. And then rounding it out, Victory Christian is 8-5-1.
And that'll get us into the top 10 in 2A, where we have the same 10 teams from last week. There was some small shuffling of teams within that top 10, but again, the same 10 teams. You know, this was a fairly deep discussion for us because there's some teams right outside that we feel, could very well be inside the top 10. But again, we go back to it. There are only 10 spots that we can get them in. And like I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, we're not going to have a tie for 10th so we can get an 11th team in there. We're going to stick with 10. And to touch on something else, now that we're getting into area play, we obviously put more value on the area series, because we know that both of those teams in an area series are going to be throwing their best. And, we've talked about it. Those are the games that matter. So, we getting into 2A, there were some teams in 2A that have already started area play. And we put there's a large weight on those area played games.
Not just because, even you talked about, that's the top determining factor for us, determining like doing these rankings, like you'll see in the later classifications. But like you said, both teams are throwing their best arms. And then another thing, it determines who makes the playoffs. So that's going to, how these teams do kind of compare to each other in area series is going to carry a heavy weight when we start doing these, when we continue to do these polls.
And if we see a team that's played 3 area games, we're not going to put as much weight into that Saturday game because we know they're not throwing their guys because they threw during the week. Now that will carry some weight, but again, not near as much as those area played games. So
if a team won the first 2 games, they've already wrapped up the important 2 games, and let's say they lose the 3rd game, well, that that the game 3 only matters if the team's split. It doesn't count towards your area record. If one team sweeps the first 2 games, the game 3 is a moot point.
Yeah. And so, yeah, all of that. And we've talked about that all year long, man. We try to do our homework in looking at the games of importance and who threw. And again, you get to the area games, there's not a lot of homework to do. Those are the games that matter. But we'll take a look at the top 10 in 2A. Staying put at number 10 is St. Luke's Episcopal. St. Luke's Episcopal went 4-0, and I think they jumped back in 2 weeks. No, they've been in, for about 4 weeks. But St. Luke's, they come in at 12-5 after, as I mentioned, going 4-0 this week. North Sand Mountain, man. Listen, and North Sand Mountain also went 3-0 this week in area. They sit at 14-2. Those are some teams that very frankly could move up, but you go back to the teams in front of them handling business. It's hard to move up when the teams in front of them are handling their business. Staying put at number 8, Red Bay. Red Bay went 2-1 last week. They sit at 10-5, and obviously they are playing their best baseball of the year right now. Again, when it counts. Pike Lib, they drop a spot. Pike Liberal Arts, that is, they drop a spot after going 1-1. They sit at 9-10. They did have a big win this week against Headland. So again, going 1-1 there. Hopeful, yes. Okay, my bad. Hopeful. I'm sorry. Yeah, I always get Headland and Hopeful mixed up. Moving up a spot after going 5-0 this week. Mars Hill Bible, they sit at 10-6. And I'll be honest, I don't think either one of us are surprised that Mars Hill is starting to catch fire now, going 5-0 last week. We saw them the third weekend of the season in our small town showdown. They were just getting their basketball players back. That's a talented team. That's a team that you're going to have to watch again this year as the state playoffs come and get deep into the playoffs. But they come in at 10-6 this week. They had wins over Loretto, Tennessee, Westminster Christian, and Lauderdale County. So that's 3 good wins for them. Summerton Christian, they stay put at number 5. And again, that's another team that maybe could say, why haven't we moved up? You got to go back to those teams in front of them holding serve, I guess you can say. Summerton Christian, they went 4-0 this week. They swept an area series against Cold Springs and also had a win against Cordova. So a great week for Summerton Christian. Swapping 3-4 this week. GW Long drops from 3 to 4. They did go 0-2 last week. They sit at 11-6. But they dropped a spot. But again, not going to punish them a lot for going 0-2. GW Long they're going to be there. I mean, that's 2A baseball. That GW Long is going to be there. Jumping GW Long, we talked about the swap there. Decatur Heritage, another team. I saw them last week, was really, really impressed with them. I really like their depth on the mound. Decatur Heritage is going to be a tough out. I saw them beat Brooks last week on Monday. Last week, Decatur Heritage went 3-1. They currently sit at 12-2. And then the top 2 remained the same. There was a lot of discussion on, do we swap Ayrton? Do we swap Vincent? We just said, let's let it play out. Let's not make some rash decision after just a week of games. But the Ayrton stays put at number 2. They went 3-1 last week. And then the Yellow Jackets of Vincent, once again, hold on to the top spot in 2A. They went 2-2 last week to hold on to that top spot. That's a really good list of 2A teams in the top 10. Those sitting right outside the top 10, Bayshore Christian, they sit at 6-12. That's a talented club. We've talked about their their scheduling. So don't really take that record too much into consideration. Bell Green is at 7-6. Cedar Bluff is at 15-3. That's a team that we discussed deeply. But again, third time I've said this, what are teams doing above you? Cottonwood, they are at an impressive 12-4 record. They went 2-0 last week. Donahoe is at 4-7. JU Blackshear is at 12-6. JU Blackshear, I had a high school coach reach out to me this week about JU Blackshear. They think that's a team to follow in 2A. They come in at 12-6. Lindsay Lane is at 11-9. after going 5-1 last week. Pleasant Valley is at 10-7. Reeltown is at 9-6, and rounding us out in 2A to keep on teams to keep an eye on is Susan Moore. They sit at 9-6.
Jumping into Class 3A, we have one new team in this week's top 10, and they're making their debut this week. And that team is Lee Scott Academy. The Warriors in their first season, just like Glenwood moving up from the AISA ranks. They've really played some strong baseball to start the season. They're 12-7. But I reeled through their losses to you last week. They all, if not all of their losses are to 6 and 7A teams. They've beaten a few select 6 and 7A teams. They played a tough schedule, and they're 12-7. So they come in at number 10. Staying put at number 9 this week is Thorsby. Thorsby went 3-0 this past week. Also staying put at number 8 is TR Miller, who went 2-0, pushing their record to 10-5. Thorsby, if I didn't mention, is 17-5. TR Miller is 10-5, sliding down one spot this week. Flip-flopping spots is coming in at number 7 is Gordo. The Green Wave went 1-2 this past week to push their record to 10-9. And then at number 6, sliding up one spot, is Winfield. Winfield went 2-1 this past week and pushed their record to 16-5. Both of those teams, and this kind of goes into what we were talking about, both of those teams are in the same area, and they just played their area series this past week. Winfield and Gordo, that being, they split their first game, and then Winfield went on to win the game 3, so that's why they flip-flop there. At staying put at number 5 this week is Collinsville. The Panthers went 2-0. They sit at 12-4. Sliding down one spot this week is St. James. The Trojans went 0-2 this past week, but have beaten some quality teams, and this, I think the ceiling of that team is pretty high, but they have some good wins, and they pushed their record to 10-5 this week and coming at number 4. Sliding up one spot this week is Thomasville. Thomasville goes 2-0 this past week and pushed their record to 10-5. They jump up to number 3, the defending Class 3A state champs. And then staying put at number 2 this week is Glenwood. The Gators go 3-0, pushing the record to 14-3. And then holding the top spot once again this week is Prattville Christian. The Panthers go 5-1 this past week, competing in the Gulf Coast Classic. I believe it's the second week of the Gulf Coast Classic down in Gulf Shores. I think they went 5-0 in pool play, and then eventually lost. I don't know who they played in the semifinals, team out of state, but that's where their one loss came from. But they've got an impressive 19-1 record, and continue to hold the top spot here as we go into week 6 of the high school season. Looking at some teams outside the top 10 in Class 3A, you've got Altamont, who we've also have heard good things about. They come in at 9-4. Fife was right there with Lee Scott, kind of who to get in for that 10th spot. Fife sits at 12-3. JV Pennington is 11-10. Lauderdale County is 7-10. Montgomery Academy is the one team to fall out of this week's poll. They sit at 10-2. Oakman is 14-8. Phil Campbell is 13-7. Piedmont is 6-8. Providence Christian is 6-9. Vinemont is 16-6. Whitesburg Christian is 10-9, and then rounding us out, Wicksburg is 8-6.
So that'll get us to 4A. Let me pull this up right here. In 4A, we have one new team. We'll talk about them in just a second. 4A, man, those are some impressive records. There's a big matchup coming this week in 4A. We'll talk about that in just a second. Staying put at number 10, Trinity Presbyterian. Trinity Presbyterian went 2-2 this week. They sit at 10-7. Alexandria, again, we know they won 5A last year. They dropped to 4A this year. Alexandria went 0-2. I will go ahead and say this. Alexandria is one of those teams. It's tough to get their updated record. So we're having to use different avenues to get their win-loss record. So we feel like we're pretty close there. Might be exact. We hope we are. The Valley Cubs, we had them at 0-2 this week. They drop a spot from 8-9. They come in with a 12-7 record. The new team this week is Haleyville. Haleyville makes their entrance into the top 10. They currently sit at 12-6. They were right outside the top 10 last week. And Haleyville jumps in because of an impressive week they had. I know they swept Hamilton in area play. They also beat Lawrence County, and then they beat Jasper. So that is 2 good wins outside of their area sweep as well. So that's how Haleyville got in there at the 8th spot. Staying put at number 7, the Blue Devils of Etowah. They went 3-1 last week. I believe, I may be wrong, I believe that was their first. I believe that included a sweep in their first area series, and that sets up a big one this week. That
one loss was to where they won the first 2 games of the area, so it's not much holding weight.
That's right. Yeah, they won the first 2, and that third game didn't mean anything. It's a throwaway game. So, again, not going to punish them, but they do play number 2 Westbrook this week. That's going to be a big matchup in 4A, but the Blue Devils stay put at number 7. Orange Beach, the Makos, they also stay put at number 6. They went 3-1 last week and currently sit at 11-6. Deschler drops 1 spot this week after going 3-1 last week. They come in with a record of 14-5. Opp, they jump up a spot from 5 to 4. They went 3-0 this week. They currently sit at 13-3. They beat New Brockton twice in area play, and then also defeated Florala. So Opp went 3-0 last week, as mentioned. The Choctaws of Bibb County, they stay put at number 3. Another team that, they sit at 15-5. They went 4-2 last week. Their 2 losses were to 6A Pelham and 7A Opelika. So again, we're not going to punish a 4A school for losing to those type of opponents. They swept Holt in area play. They beat Demopolis and also beat a very good Chilton County team. So an impressive week for Bibb County. Dropping a spot this week, flip-flopping Westbrook and Oak Grove. Man, and listen, this could be 1A and 1B if we wanted it to be. But Westbrook Christian comes in at 15-2. They defeated Pike Road and Ohatchee this week, and then lost to Piedmont. That's their 2-1 record for the week. So Westbrook drops a spot. And again, Westbrook could easily still be holding on to that number 1 spot. But we felt Oak Grove, after another 3-0 week this week, they have been really hot of late and have won a ton of games in a row. I know at least 6, maybe more. But Oak Grove jumps up to number 1 this week. They come in with a record of 16-1. They swept Indian Springs in their area play and also defeated 5A Leeds, a team that I saw and a team that I think is very good. So, man, that's some tough.
Their 1 loss. Their 1 loss too, right?
Was it American Christian?
No. One run loss to Helena like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
That's right. Yes, that's their 1 loss of the year. We talked about that last night. Yeah, so that's you know what we think of teams right outside the record of 10-10. Hanley is at 10-7. Madison County is at 11-4. They had a good week last week. I think they won 3 of 3 games. Munford is at 10-4. New Brockton is at 7. They have a record of 7-7. New Hope, they went 2-1 last week. They currently sit at 8-8, right outside the top 10. Satsuma went 1-1 last week, I believe. They sit at 10-6. Central of Florence, man, this is a team that we discussed them this past week because they split, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, but they split the first 2 area games with Deschler. That's 4A number 5 Deschler. Central of Florence was able to split those first 2 games. Deschler won that all-important 3rd game. Central Florence has, they're playing very well right now. Obviously, that was a big area matchup with Deschler. But Central Florence, go ahead.
We ended up giving the Haleyville the 10th spot because even though it was the opening, I think it was the opening game of the season, Haleyville beaten Central twice.
That's correct. Yes. And so Central Florence, man, they keep rolling. They'll find their way into the top 10 soon. They're at 14-7. Tallahassee, man, that was a team a couple of weeks ago. I think they were like 1-6 or 1-8. And they have rolled off a ton of wins. It seems like they're getting hot now. I think they were like 2-8 maybe at one point.
2-6, I think.
They were 2-6. Yes, they were at 2-6, and they've now won 10 of their next 12. They sit at 12-8. Rounding us out, the lone team to drop out from last week, W.S. Neal. They went 1-3 last week, and they sit at 9-5, right outside the top 10, which wraps us up in 4A.
Jumping along to Class 5A, we have another new number one in Class 5A. We have the same 10 teams this week. Starting us off at number 10, sliding down one spot this week is Leeds, who goes 4-1 this past week. No going 4-1, forget their one loss, but it was more kind of speaking to the fact, or more kind of giving Elmore County their props for going 4-0, who comes in at number 9. Elmore County goes 4-0. They sit at 14-6, and had coming off wins against, I think they beat Pelham and Opelika this past Saturday. So Coach Dismuke seems to have gotten it rolling there at Elmore County. They come in at number 9 this week. Sliding down a couple spots this week is St. Paul's Episcopal. The St. Paul's goes 1-2 this past week, and yes, they go 1-2 and slide down 2 spots, but maybe any other week they may stay put at number 5 or may drop down to number 6. But they slide down 2 spots this week just because of the how the teams did behind them. Most notably, you got Marbury, who goes 3-0 and pushes the record to an impressive 17-3, and then even more impressive, Russellville goes 4-0 this past week, including a big-time win over Hartselle, powerhouse 6A team. Russellville slides up from number 8 to number 6 this week. They sit at 16-4. We got a comment. Surprise. Yeah. Well, yeah. We look at body of work and who else these teams have beaten. I know Holtville's beaten Elmore County twice, but Elmore County's put together. They beat some 6A teams, like I said, this past week, and kind of go on a week-to-week basis how these teams do. So starting at number 6, like I said, Russellville comes in at 16-4, had a big win over Hartselle this past week. Staying put at number 5, and we tried to see, how can we move up north side this week. They went 3-0 once again this past week and avenged their 2 losses that they have. North side goes, they beat Tuscaloosa County on, I want to say, Monday, and then had 2 wins later in the week. They pushed their record to 16-2, and that's one game I'm hoping to see this Thursday. I think they play Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, a doubleheader on Thursday. And then coming in at number 4, Madison Academy slides down 1 spot this week. They went 4-1 this past week. They split their first 2 games, lost the first game to Ardmore, and then went on to win games 2 and 3, and then went on to win 2 more games throughout the later part of the week. So Madison Academy slides down just 1 spot to number 4, and then jumping up 1 spot back up to number 3 is Faith Academy. The Rams go 3-0 this past week, pushing their record to 12-3. And then flip-flopping this week, American Christians held that top spot in Class 5A for a good part of the season. But the Patriots slide down 1 spot this week. They went 1-3 this past week. I think they split with you remember who they split with? They split with
Northridge? No, I can look it up right now.
Northridge, but they went 1-3 this past week. They sit at 18-10. They've got some big wins, but not saying they've been scuffling here lately, just kind of come back down to earth a little bit. But we know how talented they are, and do we think that they're probably still the most talented team in Class 5A? Probably, but it's all gonna, and it's all comes down to how it plays out on the field. And American Christian and Northside are in the same area, so it's gonna be a tough area, but still think American Christian has enough talent to make another deep run throughout the playoffs as they move up. 5A this spring.
Here's American Christians from last week. They lost to Hoover in extra innings, 7-6. They beat Brookwood, lost to Tuscaloosa County, and lost to Northridge. So, again, that's impressive week. Of playing. So, comment: Neil lost to 3 of the top 15 teams in the state of Oklahoma and beat one of them. You're right. That's why we had them ranked last week. That's a talented team. Again, there's only 10 spots, and maybe WS Neil has a great week, gets back in next week. So,
Maggie or Bella? I think that was Bella.
It's Bella barking. Yeah, it's my dog. So
Maggie's behave, not Maggie's. And then taking over the top spot this week is Springville. Springville goes 4-1 this past week. I think their one loss was to Hueytown, where they faced Braden McCrary, who threw well. They're obviously led by Carter Samuelson, their UAB signee, but have gotten other pieces. I know you've seen Springville a couple of times. Had a strong week, and ultimately, we've been toying with it the past couple of weeks. Do we keep American Christian there? Do we swap Springville? And then ultimately this week, rewarding Springville for continuing to play really good baseball and win the games that are in front of them. So Springville jumps up to number 1 this week with a 15-3 record. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 5A, you have Boaz, who's 13-6. Broward Christian is 9-11. Demopolis is 10-9. Alberta is 10-6. Headland is 13-6. Holtville is 8-10. Lawrence County is 12-7. Lincoln is 12-7. Mobile Christian is 6-14, but they get started with area play this week. They play Faith Academy. I don't think I would be crazy to see if Mobile Christian ended up winning that series. So we'll see how it plays out. Moody is 11-8. Shelby County is 10-8. St. Clair County is 12-7. And then rounding us out in Class 5A, you have Valley, who comes in with a 13-5 record.
And that'll get us to 6A. Again, we appreciate all those comments out to the side there, people getting involved. Thank you so much. We appreciate, we enjoy, talking back and forth, and, love your thoughts as well. So 6A, we've talked about this every week, it seems like, and just the depth of teams. We've got 2 new teams this week, and quite frankly, there could be 16 teams that have a legitimate, reason that could be in the top 10. But this one gets harder and harder every week. We hope it gets easier as we get into area play. But as I mentioned, there are 2 new teams this week. Northridge, the Jaguars, they come in at number 10. They're at 12-6. That's a team that we've been watching over the last couple of weeks. There wasn't room to get them in. But finally, some things happened ahead of them. They continue to handle business. I love that pitching staff there at Northridge. They sit at 12-6. I'm almost certain this is the first time they've been ranked all year. At number 9, I also think this is the first time Hueytown has been ranked. Again, it's a team that has set right on the outside of getting in. But the Golden Gophers, they get in at number 9 this week. They currently sit at 16-9. They went 5-1 last week. And I have to say this, I wasn't planning on it, but I'm going to. Coach Chandler does a fantastic job there. We have some fantastic high school coaches across our state, and that's why these rankings are so difficult. That's why, we love doing what we do. I'm going to tell you that Hueytown, man, they may not be as talented as a lot of the other teams on this list. And this is nothing meant in a derogatory or negative way towards Hueytown. This is nothing but a compliment to that entire program. All they do every game is show up and get after you. And the teams that play against them, I believe they can vouch for that. They are fundamentally solid. They handle the bat. They're tough to strike out. They make the routine plays. Man, I'm telling you, that's a fun team to watch. They finally get in this week at number 9, staying put at number 8, the Trojans of Hazel Green. They sit at 19-8 after going 3-1 last week. Their lone loss was to 7A Grissom. But again, we've talked about the last 2 weeks, Hazel Green, those young talented position players they have really been swinging it well. The Patriots of Homewood, man, they had a 2-0 week last week. They said it's 16-3. That team's rolling. They are rolling. They're going to be a tough out in 6A, dropping from 1 to 6. And again, listen, we know that's a significant drop for Chelsea, but and we've talked about it all year long, that 6A area 7, they're in that greater Birmingham area, man. But you've got Pelham, you've got Chelsea, you've got Spain Park, you've got Helena. We've talked about that's 4 really good teams, and they've all been ranked at the same time at various points throughout the year. That we knew that this was going to be a knockdown, drag out, area race as the year goes on. And last week, Chelsea played Spain Park, and they lost both games. One of them, I think, was the second game was in 9 innings, I believe. I think Spain Park erupted for 5 runs in the 9th, was able to win 8-3. And we've already said this at the beginning of this podcast. We're going to put more weight in those area series. So again, for Chelsea, that's a big drop. But, for them, it doesn't mean anything in terms of qualifying for the state playoffs. They still have 2 important area series ahead of them. The aforementioned Jaguars of Spain Park, they move up from 6 to 5 after that sweep of Chelsea in area play. They went 3-0 last week. They are currently 12-7. At number 4, jumping up from number 5 is Helena. So you've got Helena, Spain Park, and Chelsea at 4, 5, and 6, all in the same area. But Helena comes in at 13-8. They went 3-0 last week, which included a sweep of Pelham. And I forget who else they beat.
Is that Helena?
Yeah. I forget who. It's not real important, but they did sweep that area series against Pelham. They sit at 13-8 overall. Oxford jumps up from 4 to 3. They currently sit at 13-7. They went 2-0 last week. I think they beat a team from Mississippi. I can't remember, but Oxford sits at 13-7 at number 3. At number 2, Hartselle. They jump up from 3 to 2. I believe they swept their first area series against Muscle Shoals. They're at 4-1. 4-1 for the week. They currently sit at 13-6. Austin mentioned that lone loss was to Russellville, but that was an impressive week for the Tigers to jump back up from 3 to 2. And then Mountain Brook. Mountain Brook takes over the top spot for the first time this year. They've been top 5, top 3 all year, but they finally get to the top spot after going 3-1 last week, sweeping area play, and their lone loss last week. Again, well, they sit at 15-5, but their lone loss last week was to undefeated number 1 in 7A Hewitt-Trussville, a game that very well they very well could. That's right. Helena beat Opelika. Thank you. They very well could have won that game. So that was a great week for Mountain Brook. The Spartans jump up to number 1, currently sit at 15-5. We've talked about the depth. Here are some teams to look at. I know that we've already got a comment out there, and I appreciate Jonathan with that comment. Wetumpka is a team to look at. You are exactly correct. Wetumpka does sit right outside our top 10. They're at 16-5. Another team from that area, Stanhope Elmore, they're at 11-9. Spanish Fort, after a brutal schedule all season long, sits at 11-10. Southside is at 17-3. Man, what a run for Southside. That's an impressive record of 17-3. That's a team that has gotten a lot of consideration, a lot of discussion about getting them in. We'll see how this week plays out. The Spartans of Saraland sit at 11-8. The aforementioned Pelham Panthers, they dropped out last week. They're at 13-7. McGill-Tulane is at 15-3. And I think they've got a big area series coming up this week. I may be wrong. Maybe Spanish Fort. I could be wrong. Is that right? Yeah. I think they've got a big series with Spanish Fort coming up. Gulf Shores, the Dolphins are at 11-8, seem to be playing very well lately. Gardendale, we talked about them earlier. Gardendale sits at 10-7. I know they got off to a sweep in area play last week. Coleman, they dropped out last week after going 2-2. I think they beat Huntsville. They lost to Buckhorn and split with Hillcrest, I believe. Coleman sits at 8-8. Again, that's 4 formidable opponents. Coleman getting ready for, just again, that always play a tough schedule. Buckhorn, early in the season, Buckhorn was scuffling a little bit. It looks like Buckhorn has sort of righted the ship and is playing very well right now. I know that in that area, with all due respect to all opponents, I believe it's probably going to come down to Buckhorn and Hazel Green for the area winner and runner-up as time plays out. And Buckhorn seemed to be playing much better of late. And then the Golden Eagles of Athens, they round us out of those right outside the top 10. They come in with a 12-4 record. Again, you can see that's a lot of quality teams in 6A. And that's why that list is so long right outside of the top 10. So that'll wrap us up in 6A. I'll turn it back over to you, Austin.
Yep, we're moving on to Class 6A. Obviously, we've got the same number 1 this week, but we've got one new team who makes their way back into the top 10 this week, and that is Fairhope, who comes in at number 10. This past week, they went 3-1 this past week. They beat Trinity Presbyterian, beat Demopolis, beat Bartlett, and then got beat by Enterprise. And they faced Brady Richardson, and I think he threw a no-hitter. So no shame there with their lone loss. They make their way back into number 10 this week. At number 9, you have Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. Hillcrest went 2-3 this past week, split with Hoover on Thursday. They got beat by Northridge as well, and then split with Coleman later in the week. So Patriots come in at number 9. At number 8 is Thompson. The Warriors went 2-1 this past week, pushing their record to 15-10. I think they played this past week. They beat Oak Mountain on Tuesday, got beat Tupelo on Saturday, and then got beat by Hoover 7-3 on Saturday. So they slide down one spot this week, but they're probably the one team or one of the teams that you don't want to see in a 3-game series with Holden and Wyatt Williams on the mound and a bunch of other guys. So we know how talented Thompson is, and they'll be a team to continue to monitor in the Birmingham area. Coming in at number 7 this week is Tuscaloosa County, fresh off of their Gulf Coast Classic championship, I guess you could call it, last week. This week, they went 2-2 on the week. They pushed their record to 17-8. They got beat by Northside earlier in the week and got beat by Vestavia on Thursday, but they also beat Sipsey Valley and American Christian. So they slide down one spot this week, but coming at number 7. At number 6 is Hoover. The Buccaneers seem to have really, really turned a corner, and I think you said that they got a big piece back on the mound this past week. So Hoover jumps up 3 spots this week from number 9 to number 6. They went 5-1 on the week. Looking at their week, they beat American Christian, got beat by Hillcrest, beat Hillcrest, and then beat Huntsville, Tupelo, and Thompson to close out their week. So the Bucks seem to be playing their best baseball down the stretch. At number 5 is Central Phoenix City. The Red Devils go 4-2 this past week. They got to see their game against Vestavia. Vestavia came down and played Central. I think they're playing right now, but I think they're down at the beach playing Athens. Yeah. But this past week, Central Phoenix City swept Stanhope, split with Vestavia, got beat Pike Road, and got beat by Ben Russell. So they slide down one spot this week. And swapping spots with Enterprise. Enterprise goes 4-1 this past week, pushing their record to 19-1. They continue their strong year of baseball. Finally suffered their first loss of the season, but beat Ayrton, got beat by Providence Christian, beat Bartlett, and then beat Mary G. Montgomery and Fairhope. So they continue to build on their resume. They come in at number 4. Staying put this week is Bob Jones. Bob Jones went and played up in Tennessee. They went 4-1 this past week, and I think their lone defeat was to Magnolia Heights. We've got Vestavia Hill. Yeah, I was talking with a parent. They're down in IMG. Got a big week of baseball ahead of them. So Bob Jones goes 4-1 this past week, pushing the record to 19-7. Vestavia Hills, who goes 3-1 this past week, they sit at 14-4. Like I said, their one loss was to Central Phoenix City, who they split with, but they also beat Hueytown and also beat Tuscaloosa County. And offline, we've talked about Vestavia Hills. Man, their lineup 1 through 9. Starting it off with Charlie Taft in the leadoff spot, William Tonsmeyer, Cross Tonsmeyer, Gavin Smith. Those top 4 hitters, and it's not just those guys. It continues to go down the lineup, but those first 4 hitters, they can bang the ball around the yard. I think they probably average multiple home runs a game. I think they hit 4 or 5 in the game that I saw this past Saturday. So they're really a really offensive team and are led by Chase Rafferty on the mound. And then coming in at the number 1 spot this past week, Hewitt-Trussville goes a perfect 4-0, pushing their record to 20-0 and highlighted by that big extra inning win earlier in the week against Mountain Brook. The Huskies continue to go undefeated on the year, and they sit at 20-0. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 this week, you've got
Hewitt also made their debut in our top 50 national rankings. We're like 38th or something. What was it? Do you remember? They were ranked. Yeah, they were nationally ranked. Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, man.
Yeah. Shout out. We got to shout out Hampton Hall, freshman from Oakland. We know, we saw Hampton this past in the small town showdown hit a big grand slam.
Was also on our junior future games teams this summer.
Yeah. So Auburn leads us off outside of the top 10 in alphabetical order. Auburn is 12-8. Dothan is 13-8. James Clemens is 15-6 and had a strong case to make their way into the top 10. Oak Mountain is 12-8, and then the one team to drop out this week is Grissom, who goes 3-2 this past week, but come in outside of the top 10 with a 14-8 record. We'll go ahead and jump into the Power 25. These are the top 25 AHSAA teams ranked regardless of classification. So we'll go ahead and get started here. At number 25, you've got Madison Academy. Mustangs come in with an 18-5 record. Glenwood is at number 24 with a 14-3 record. Faith Academy is 12-3 and come in at number 23. Grissom is number 22 and sits at 14-8. Prattville Christian is number 21. They come in with a 19-1 record. American Christian dropped down to number 20. They sit at 18-10. Springville sits at number 19. They're 15-3. And number 18 is Hazel Green, who sits at 19-8. Number 17 is Fairhope, who sits at 13-7. And number 16 is Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, who sits at 15-7. Thompson sits at number 15 with a 15-10 record. Homewood is number 14 with a 16-3 record. And number 13 is Tuscaloosa County with a 17-8 record. And number 12 is Chelsea sliding down. They sit at number 12 with a 12-9 record. And number 11 is Smain Park with a 12-7 record. Hoover comes in at 13-10 and sits at number 10. Helena is 13-8, comes in at number 9. And number 8 is Oxford with a 13-7 record. And number 7 is Hartselle, who comes in at 13-6 at number 7. And then at number 6 is Central Phoenix City with a 17-7 record. And number 5 is Mountain Brook with a 15-5 record. Enterprise comes in at number 4, sitting at 19-1. Bob Jones is number 3, sitting at 19-7. And then Vestavia Hills comes in at number 2 with a 14-4 record. And then staying at the top spot this week, the Hewitt-Trussville Huskies sits at 20-0 and continue to reel off their perfect season, number 1 in 7A and number 1 in the Power 25 poll. Like we said, I think they're down playing at IMG, so we're going to play some good teams. We'll see if they can continue their streak of their 20-game winning streak to start the season, but going to play some good teams on there. We'll see how they do in Florida. So that'll round it out with our polls, our Class 1A through 7A polls, and wrap us up with our Power 25. And all this will be available later in the day on our website and on our social media channels. So be on the lookout for that here in a few hours.
Man, taking a look at that's an impressive list of top 25 teams, man. I mean, that shows the depth of baseball in Alabama. Just a couple things to wrap us up. And we do this every week. Just some things to be looking for as we move forward this week. Obviously, we just released our classification polls in Power 25. Those will be coming out on our social media channels later today, as Austin mentioned. Tomorrow, be on the lookout for our Mizuno Pitcher of the Week and our Mizuno Player of the Week, thanks to those coaches that submitted nominations. Wednesday, go ahead.
We get our Pitcher and Player of the Week. It's about as good as we've had, those stat lines.
Yeah. And by the way, shout out Fleming Hall. Last week, he was the Player of the Week in Alabama. We submit those to our national office, and Fleming was named the National Player of the Week. Had an impressive week last week. So congratulations to him from Trinity Presbyterian. He is an Auburn recruit, but he won the Prep Baseball National Player of the Week last week. And we think the two guys we're going to have this week could very well be in contention for that. So, that's Pitcher and Player of the Week. Again, that comes out tomorrow. On Wednesday, some of the other players that were nominated for Pitcher of the Player of the Week that come up short will be featured in our Diamond Notes section, as we always do on Wednesday. And then, as you mentioned, Monday through Thursday this week, we're going to try to get out to as many games as we can. We'll be updating that scout blog throughout the week, keeping it updated daily. So be on the lookout for that. I do have to tell you this. There will not be a podcast next Monday. So again, we will not have a podcast next Monday. We will be releasing our rankings and our Power 25 via social media. Austin, you want to tell the group where we're headed next week?
Have a prior
obligation. Where is that prior obligation, Austin?
It's in Virginia.
It's in Virginia. It's at the Cookout 400 in Martinsville, Virginia. We're big NASCAR fans. Austin got me a ticket to Martinsville for Christmas, and we are headed up, and we're going to try to watch the truck race, the Xfinity race, and the NASCAR race. So we're going up there next week. So we will not have a podcast next week, but our polls will be released on our social media channels. So again, and we'll update you via our social media. And to wrap us up, as always, on our website, prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama. Go there. Up on the top, on the black taskbar across the top, you will see a tab labeled AHSAA. If you click on there, you can see everything relevant to high school baseball across the state. Team previews from the first of the year, our scout blogs, classification polls, heat sheet, pitcher and player of the week, and so forth. So that's a great one-stop shop for all of you to stay up to date throughout the week for happenings across the state in Alabama. So, Austin, if you don't have anything else, that will wrap us up for this week. Again, we appreciate the questions, the comments. We appreciate you. We'll appreciate you getting on and commenting and asking us questions. We appreciate that. But as always, thank you for listening, and best of luck to your team this week. And hopefully we see you around. Take care. Have a good day.